Hey there, here is the carving of the maxillary right first molar. We have wax block here with marked midline on each surface and also the labeling as buccal, palatal, mesial and distal. Now for the crown length we have to take 7.5 mm, and as for the root we have to take 12 mm for the buccal root and lingual 13 mm. For the mesodistal diameter of the crown we have to take 10.0 mm and at cervix 8.0 mm. We'll do this for the palatal side also. Now we'll draw the line to get a trapezoid shape. Now we have to remove the extra part. And for the buccolingual diameter of the crown we have to take 11.0 mm and at cervix 10.0 mm, and again we'll remove the extra part. Now for the carving of molar we have to get the diamond shape. So for the cusp we have to remove these parts from the occlusal third. Now we'll carve the occlusal surface. So we have to carve the mesobuccal, distobuccal, mesolingual and distolingual cusp and a supplemental cusp which is called as cusp or tubercle of Carabelli. So we have to carve them. So we'll first proceed with the mesobuccal cusp. And also will mark the oblique ridge. The mesobuccal cusp is broader than the distobuccal cusp and its mesial slope meets its distal slope at an obtuse angle. The mesial slope of the distobuccal cusp meets its distal slope at approximately at right angle, and the distobuccal cusp is therefore sharper than the mesobuccal one, and it is at least as long and often longer. The buccal developmental groove divides the two buccal cusps, is approximately equidistant between the mesobuccal and distobuccal line angles. The mesolingual cusp is much larger, and before the distolingual cusp is so spheroidal and smooth that it is difficult to describe any angulation on the mesial and distal slopes. The lingual developmental groove starts approximately in the center of the lingual surface mesodistally, curves sharply to the distal as it crosses between the cusps and continues onto the occlusal surface. And we'll carve the oblique ridge, which crosses the occlusal surface obliquely. The union of the triangular ridge of the distobuccal cusp and the distal ridge of the mesolingual cusp forms the oblique ridge. Mesial marginal ridge and distal marginal ridge are irregular ridges confluent with the mesial and distal cusp ridges of the mesial and distal major cusp. There are two minor fossa that are mesial triangular fossa and immediately distal to the mesial marginal ridge, and the distal triangular fossa is present immediately mesial to the distal marginal ridge. The major fossa is the central fossa, which is roughly triangular and mesial to the oblique ridge, and the distal fossa, which is roughly linear and distal to the oblique ridge. From the buccal aspect, the crown is roughly trapezoidal with the cervical and occlusal outlines representing the uneven sides. So, the buccal and lingual developmental groove will divide the cusp. We'll carve the fifth cusp or the supplemental cusp, which is called as cusp of Carabelli. It's attached to the mesolingual surface of the mesolingual cusp, and the cusp ridge is approximately 2 mm cervical to the cusp ridge of the mesolingual cusp. Now carving of the crown part of the maxillary first molar is done. Now we'll carve the root part. The three roots of the generous portions are the mesobuccal, distobuccal, and lingual. These roots are well separated and well developed. The buccal roots are bifurcated at the 4 mm above the cervical line. The lingual portion of the root trunk is continuous with the entire cervical portion of the crown lingually, and it is conical, terminating in a bluntly rounded apex. The mesial outline of the mesobuccal root and part of its apex may be seen from the lingual aspect, and distal outline is seen above the middle third, including all of its apical outline. The lingual outline of the root is relatively straight from the bluntly rounded apex down to the bifurcation with the lingual root, and the mesobuccal root is broad and flattened on its mesial surface, and this flattened surface often exhibits smooth fluting for part of its length. The buccal outline of the root extends upward and outward from the crown, ending at the blunt apex. And a smooth depression congruent with the bifurcation extends occlusally and lingually almost to the cervical line, directly above the mesiolingual line angles of the crown. The lingual root is longer than the mesial root, but is narrower from its aspect. The lingual root is banana-shaped, extending lingually with its convex outline to the lingual and its concave outline to the buccal. At its middle and apical third, it is outside of the confines of the greatest crown projection. Although its apex is rounded, the root appears more pointed towards the end than the mesobuccal root. The distobuccal root is narrower at its base than either of the others. An outline of this root, when the tooth is viewed from the distal aspect, starts buccally at a point immediately above the distobuccal cusp, follows a concave path inward for the short distance, then turn outward in a buccal direction, completing a graceful convex arc from the concavity to the rounded apex. The bifurcation here is more apical than either of the other two areas on this tooth. The area from cervical line to bifurcation is 5 mm or more in extent. So this was the carving of maxillary right first molar. Watch my next video for the carving of maxillary second molar, and for that you have to press the bell icon for the latest video update. So please like, share and subscribe to my channel.